the hate that started between my mom and stepmom was probably partially based in, Israel-Palestine problems.
That was Jenny Zigrino. I'm your host, Michael Malone, and this is Punched Up, a podcast about stand-up comedy that's, punched up. Don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes. You can also join our conversation on Twitter at PunchedUpPod. Enjoy.
I will set the scene. I'm going into 6th grade, and I live in Minnesota, and I live with my dad and my stepmom. My stepmom at the time is Muslim, and I'm Jewish, and my dad is converted to Islam. My mother and him have a very, not friends at all kind of thing, as you can imagine, when her ex-husband converted to Islam. And, for, the way I look back on it, I think it's cool. I grew up in a Jewish household celebrating Christmas, and then, my dad's not eating because it's Ramadan. So it's And then on top of that, I would go to Hindu camp.
Typical American.
Typical Midwest childhood.
Yeah, very Minnesota.
Yeah, very Minnesota rural childhood. Yes, Ganesha and
Paul of you. That, again, is the very funny Jenny Zigrino. You've seen her on the Conan O'Brien show. She also has her own cooking show on the IFC channel, and she just recently filmed a half-hour Presents special for Comedy Central. Jenny is seriously one of my favorite comedians to watch. I know many of you listening might have grown up in a family that is divided or divorced or separated, but in Jenny's case, it gets even messier when you have to factor in everyone's religion, their culture, and even different cities across the country that they live in. Jenny's story is the truest form of "it's complicated" on Facebook. Today on Punched Up, we explore Jenny's upbringing, what it was like being in the middle of a multicultural divorce, starting over in a place where you truly are considered an outsider, and the strange way parents express their love for their children, even if their children don't see it that way when it's happening. All that and much, much more when we come back.
I was like, Dad, I went to public school and I'm perfect, okay? I'm just like everybody else in America, mildly depressed with a fake gluten allergy, all right? I am killing it. But he thinks that public schools teach that America is a racist country. And I was like, Dad, it is. I don't know where you've been this whole time. But I would love to be in a classroom where a teacher is explaining racism to 5-year-olds. And she's just like, okay, kids, today we're gonna learn about the colors using our 64 crayon Crayola box. Now that's yellow, that's the color of the sun. And that's blue, that's the color of the sky. And that's black, that's the color of oppression. And you see how the black crayon's all tiny and nubby because it's been used over and over and over again by all the other crayons? And then try to dig down deep in the box to get it, but you can't. It's held down by crack cocaine within its community. And then you're like, oh, I'll use the white crayon. It's perfect, it's pristine. Then you realize it's the shittiest crayon in the box, came in marked on the fucking paper. So then you're still trying to dig down and get in. You're just like, fuck it, I'll use the brown crayon, does the same job but for cheaper.
I was living with my mom, and a few years before this, my mom dropped us off at my dad's and was like, see you guys in a week, and then just never showed up. My mom and dad, when he remarried, they had a very bad relationship, and we weren't allowed to see him sometimes, and it would be like every other weekend. So we had no idea where she went, and it turns out that she had gone to Israel to be with her dad for like a month, but didn't tell anybody. Because her lawyer at the time told her to do that, because her lawyer was a fucking idiot.
So this is after the...
Yeah, this is all. So my dad's already remarried to this woman,
okay,
to the new lady. She's been our stepmom since I was like 5, so I'm like, that's 5th grade, like 10, 11. I'm very much like a daddy's girl. To this day, I'm still looking for my dad. Like when I was with my dad, like my weight wasn't such an issue. I felt more nurtured. I felt I had someone to help me do my homework. I just felt like I had a better life there. So I went to camp that summer. Like my mom had come back and she had moved to Boston with my brother, who's 14 years older than me. He opened a business. And so she moved across the country and was like, I'm sending you again to like this Hindu camp. It's in Montreal. It's Swami Shivananda Ashram and Yoga Camp. It's super fun. You know, every 11-year-old loves to be forced to be a vegetarian and do yoga at 7 in the morning. What 11-year-old is not dreaming of this? So I spend the summer there. It's a month. It's a fun summer. It's great. And I was going to go back to Minnesota to go to school to do my last elementary school, 6th grade. And I was super excited. And my mom picks us up and we come back. And then I'm kind of like waiting around like, when's my flight? When am I leaving? When's this happening? And she just was like, you're not going back. And I was like, but that's where I live. Like that's... That's my like that. I gotta go home. I have school. Like, come on, Mom. I have to show this sweet tan off to all those Minnesotans that I got in Canada.
Okay, let's slow down and recap what's happening, because even I'm getting a little lost. Ginny's parents split up when she was really young. Her father remarried when she was 5, and then he converted religions to match his new wife's background. This, of course, doesn't sit well with Ginny's mother and sparks kind of a rivalry between them. I imagine amongst other things, I'm sure, as most divorces go, but this, I take it, is the straw that broke the camel's back. So, like most children of divorced families, Jenny is splitting her time between both parents. Then, under some bad legal advice, her mother just leaves the country. And by the way, if a lawyer ever tells you that your best bet is just to leave the country, you should probably just stay gone, okay? Just stay wherever you're headed. Don't come back. Anyways, her mother returns and moves from Minnesota, where her father lives, to Boston, a place that Ginny is unfamiliar with. But she thinks, you know what? It's only for the summer. I can adapt. No big deal. And then when it's time to go back to her dad's place in Boston, her mother just, well, keeps her. It's pretty much the laziest kidnapping in history.
So what had happened is she moved across the country and I didn't want to move to Boston. And it was me and my sister. And my sister was going to live with her. She decided she wanted to move. Was like 13 at the time. I still wanted to stay in Minnesota. And so they were going to split custody of us in that way. At this time, I think my mom, she like had an apartment already, was seeing someone. I forget what it was. But she moved to Revere. We were moving there and I just kind of, was waiting like, when am I going home? And behind the scenes, I guess what was going on is crazy custody battle with the courts and everything. And, my dad being like, you got to send her home. She's enrolled in school here, all this stuff. And I'm just like, I have no idea. I'm like crying all the time because I just want to go home and her mom will let me go home. And I like look back on it now and I'm like, that must have broken her heart to be like, why doesn't my daughter want to live with me? Why doesn't she love me? I was leaving like notes like, I hate you. Let me go home. Why can't I go home? You don't understand why you can't go home. You're like, it's so easy. Just put me on a plane. Like, why can't I just go home? Just put me on the fucking plane. I have all these plans for 6th grade that I'm so excited to do, and now I don't get to do them. I don't know exactly what happened between my dad and stepmom and her. Like I was between 5 and 10. Like I think like what happened with the hate that started between my mom and stepmom was probably partially based in, Israel-Palestine problems. But I mean, I know my mom was convinced that she was like poisoning us with her food, which is a little crazy. Those curries are so evil or whatever, like that, all that dal they feed you, it's poisoning your brain, or like that we were gonna be Muslim. I don't know what was going on.
I went to Russia, you guys. I went there and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna disprove all the terrible things that people say about Russians, that they are mean, rude, cruel people. Turns out that they are assholes, every last one of them. But I did find out I am gonna have the nicest beard when I'm 30, you guys. I'll be so sexy. Now, when I was there, I wanted to impress them. I don't speak Russian. So I was like, Mom, how do you say, that's delicious, I'm finished? She goes, очень вкусно, я кончил. And I'm like, sweet. I stretch out after dinner. Очень вкусно, я кончил. And everyone is silent. I'm like, they are amazed with my Russian right now. Turns out what I actually said was, that was delicious. I just came. So good.
So after the summer, school obviously starts to begin, and Ginny is still in Boston with her mother. She doesn't know when she's going home, or if she will ever go back to Minnesota with her father again. So her mother enrolls her into a private Jewish school, a place and religion that Ginny had never been before or knew anything about.
Going from regular elementary school, Hindu camp, and then I'm like in like an Orthodox Jewish school. It blew my mind. And opening day, the first day of school, they had a klezmer band playing for us. So I'm like, I guess for me at this point, like I'm already in school. I'm like, fuck, I'm not going home. I have to tell my friends. They're like, it's school. And I'm like, because I'm currently being kidnapped. No big deal. Since September, I've been away. I live in Massachusetts, and it's this whole different world from Minnesota to Boston. Now I'm in like this Jewish school. I'm Jewish culturally, but like I never had bat mitzvah, or I've never gone to synagogue regularly, and these kids are super into it, and the school is super into it. And there's one guy who's not Jewish, and it's the gym teacher. It's like the first day of school. I'm like, first of all, I was like super depressed at this point because I'm like, I'm never going home and I'm stuck in this school. This school's like in the woods or something. I don't even remember where the fuck it was. I just remember being in the woods and being like, I'm never going home. So we're sitting in gym. The teacher, who's like this East Coast Massachusetts, like Goldberg, Goldman, just like doing roll call of all these Jewish names. And then he gets to Zigrino and he stops and he's like, Zigrino? And I'm like, yeah, it's me. And he's like, are you Italian? This look in his eyes of, oh God, it's not a Jew. I'm so happy. He's like freaking out, just like, oh my God, Zigrino! You're Italian! And I'm like, yeah, I'm Italian, I'm half Italian. He's like, so you're half Jewish, half Italian? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like I made his Christmas. Because there was a goy-ish person at this gym. And if I didn't want to do gym class, he'd be like, yeah, no problem. I think he introduced me like the word paisan. He was like, yeah, no problem. You don't have to do anything. Don't worry about it. So I remember him very much. Fridays, of course, we like got off early because this is like the Shabbos. They had like a head rabbi. And I remember like we went to this assembly, and then he did this thing where like they wrap leather and like have a box on their heads and do this prayer stuff. And I was just like, everyone else like knows what's going on and knows all the prayers. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I have no fucking idea what is going on right now. Like I was talking to the counselor. Like I had a counselor and she was nice, but I think I kind of tried to explain what was going on. And she was like, you'll make friends. It's fine. You'll figure it out. And I want to just someone take me home. So I go to this school, and I remember they only had lunch. They would only serve lunch 4 days a week. So, like, I remember that first week, like, I didn't know that, and my mom didn't know that. One day, like, I didn't have any food for lunch, and I just felt such, like, this outsider. I don't know these people. I'm supposed to, like, know this culture. I don't know it. I felt so completely alone in this. So they had this milk carton that was like, all right, guys, what's in this milk carton? And everyone's like, milk. And then she's like, no, there isn't, and poured out these Skittles. So we're all like, we're getting Skittles. Because it was like, don't, judge a book by its cover kind of thing. And the teacher like went up and was like, I'm sorry, but Skittles aren't kosher, so the kids can't have Skittles. And it was so none of us could have the fucking Skittles because they weren't kosher. And the woman's like, we should have brought M&Ms or like some other fucking candy. That to me just like epitomized like that experience of that school was like, I don't know how to explain it, but I'm sure one day I'll find some symbolism in that.
And like, I actively went out to try to find other friends to benefit with, but this is the problem, you guys. He was a hipster, Hasidic, Jewish carpenter. I was fucking Jesus. It was amazing. Oh, he used to dirty talk to me in Yiddish. What? I loved it. I felt like that girl who just found out she likes to be choked, but it's by 5,000 years of Jewish culture. Just, Hanukkah. Ooh. It's great. We used to role play that he was my landlord, which he was. And that I was the tenant, and he would knock on my door and be like, Ms. Zigrino, your rent's due. And I'd be like, oh, however shall I pay? And then we'd do it. And then I'd pay him $800.
And then finally the day came, and Jenny's mom sat her down and told her that, well, she was going to send her back and she could live with her father again in Minnesota. But Jenny was already adapting to this new school, and she was already settled in, and she didn't know how she felt about going back.
At that time, it had been a month, and I was kind of already just getting used to it. And I think I maybe had like a friend or something. I remember being super excited, but then you get that feeling washing over you of, oh, I'm leaving, and I can see how much this is breaking her heart, and I feel bad because I'm just like, I want to go home, but she's probably feeling like my daughter hates me. It really like stung for her. I guess she had kept all the notes that I had left when I was angry and 11 about how I hated her and how upset I was that she had kidnapped me and I wanted to go home and I loved Dad more than her, like all those stuff you do when you're 11, right? And I was just like, wow, Mom, did you have any baby pictures of me? Do you have any of those? Did you keep my clothes when I was a baby? No, you didn't. You gave those away, but you're gonna keep these fucking letters. And she told me this story, and she's Russian, so she's like, there is a story of a man who have a very troubled boy. And every time the boy hurt the father, he take a nail and he hammer it into fence. And when the boy gets older, he says, Papa, I'm so sorry for all I did. I was young and stupid, and I love you. And the father says, okay, I want to show you something. So he takes the boy to the fence, and he sees the nails, and he starts removing the nails. And the father says to the boy, I forgive you. The nails, they represent what happened, I forget it. But the holes, they'll stay forever. The scars, they stay. And I was like, you fucking bitch, what? Mom, you're the worst.
It's ice cold.
Right? I love her so much. So I left, and I remember like being at the airport and like crying and feeling like maybe it wasn't so bad. And like watching my mom cry, feeling really bad about it, but also excited to go home. Just you're young and your parents put you in the middle of their shit, which is unfair, but being kidnapped's a fun thing.
Such a beautiful and complicated story from comedian Jenny Zigrino. I like this because it shows you both sides of it. It shows you how messy parenting can get. Not only parenting, but life. I mean, things get complicated. Things happen. People split up. People disagree on things. Sometimes they leave the country. But it also shows you the point of view from the child that's stuck in the middle, who doesn't really know what's going on, who is unsure of what to do, who's just adapting to their new situation, their new life. And I also like it because right now I'm sure there's some parents listening going, wow, I've never looked at it that way. And again, maybe there's children that are products of divorce that are listening too, that are like, yeah, that sounds like some shit that happened in my family or my situation. It's so relatable on both sides. Even, if you can't relate to the multicultural part of it, you can still relate to the human side of both parties. I want to thank my guest today, Jenny Zigrino. You can watch her new Comedy Central Presents special. It'll be out this fall. You can also download her album. It's up on iTunes. It's called Jay-Z's New Album. Make sure you check her out. She's absolutely one of my favorite comedians working today. So you need to see her when she comes to your town. And you can check us out. If you like this episode and you want to hear more, come on over to puncheduppodcast.com, and you can always join the conversation and follow us on Twitter at puncheduppod. Thanks for listening. That, again, was comedian Jenny Zigrino. You can check her out on Comedy Central, on IFC, and make sure you download her album on iTunes. I've been your host, Michael Malone, and you can follow us on Twitter at puncheduppod. And a special shout-out goes to my buddy Jake Beaver, who did all of the story consulting on this episode. You can check him and all of his podcasts and his crew out at 4D Podcast Network. Make sure you look them up. They're doing absolutely great things over there. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening. Punched Up is a Glasshammer production, created and hosted by Michael Malone. The clips you heard of the guest are all released and licensed through them personally. The music you heard is a mixture from incompetech.com and premiumbeats.com, the best place to find what you need for your next video-audio project. Other clips are licensed through YouTube or our public domain. This episode was mixed by James Warburton Music. Find out more, visit us online at punchedup.com.